Will you go out with me?
Just a week after meeting him, he confessed his feelings on the first day we hung out together. Caught off guard by his momentum, I said, yes. 1 year later, with no reason to break up, he proposed.
I'll protect you for the rest of my life. Will you marry me?
It was such a joyful phrase, but in retrospect, given his profession, he might have been accustomed to saying it. My name is Melissa. I am a 30-year-old office worker. My fiancé Sam is a police officer, 2 years my senior at 32. We met at an event for a hobby we both share. I was invited by my friend from high school and decided to participate. As I approached my 30s, I began to think about marriage, but without any romantic prospects. I joined the event a year ago just because I was invited. I wasn't particularly hopeful, but Sam, who I met there, seemed to take a liking to me for some reason. So we started seeing each other. A week later, we went out to dinner, and that's when he confessed his feelings. He's a police officer, apparently from a long line of them. I don't know anyone in law enforcement, so I knew nothing about that world. But as a fan of TV dramas, I had a vague image of it being quite cool. The proposal came just the other day. There were times when Sam's work kept him too busy to see me, but I thought I could stay with this man.
Melissa was just my type.
Apparently, he liked the way I looked and would often say things like that. I was happy to hear that, but it bothered me when he said things like,
We don't have any high school graduates in our family. Well, I guess it can be helped.
As if he was looking down on me for being a high school graduate. But it's true that I only graduated high school and Sam seems like an elite, having graduated from university, so perhaps it's inevitable that he would think that way. My family only has my mom, so I wanted to get a job quickly and make life easier for her, rather than go to college. When I told him that, he nodded and seemed to understand, so I believe he meant no harm. When I was in elementary school, my parents divorced because of my father's debts, and since then, my mother has raised me by herself without any child support, so I didn't want to burden my mother with the cost of college. In high school, I was encouraged to go to college with a scholarship, but I wanted to work and make money as soon as possible, so I chose to join the company I am at now. I have told Sam about this, and when I asked him just to make sure, you don't have any debts, do you? He laughed and said,
Of course not.
My mother had a hard time because of my father's debts. That's why I hate debts. I felt that even a scholarship was a kind of debt, and I didn't want to borrow money to go to college. Relieved by Sam's response, I decided to marry him. Now I live away from home, but I often talk to my mother on the phone. I have told her about Sam, and when I told her about his proposal, she was delighted. We haven't had a chance to introduce him to my mom due to Sam's schedule, but we're planning a meeting between both families soon, so I'll introduce him to her then. Before the family meeting, Sam asked me to visit his parents' house, so I, though nervous, went to his family's house with him. His mother, who greeted us, seemed to be a quiet person. After greeting her, we were led to the living room where his father was waiting. His father, in a word, seemed to be a big shot, and I was a little put off by him. Once the greetings were over, his father began to talk. Being a police officer himself, we had to listen for a long time to his stories about the cases he had solved. He keeps insisting that he was the only one who could have solved it, but all I can do is nod along. The tea that my mother-in-law prepared is growing cold, and I can't even find the right moment to eat the sweets in front of me. Looking at the clock, I'm shocked to find that only 20 minutes have passed. Time seems to be crawling at an astonishingly slow pace. That just goes to show how boring my father-in-law's stories are. Sam, sitting next to me, seems satisfied, sipping his tea and munching on his snacks. And even more, he's asking my mother-in-law for a second cup of tea. Wait, was he always this inconsiderate? Or is he used to his dad's rambling that he doesn't feel the need to consider my feelings? Although I let my father-in-law's stories in one ear and out the other, nearly an hour of one-sided conversation leaves me feeling quite drained. Finally, it seems like his tale has come to an end. As I reach for my tea, just as I expected, it has gone cold. My mother-in-law tries to make a fresh pot, but Sam interrupts with,
It's fine. Melissa likes her drinks lukewarm.
And that's why I ended up drinking cold tea. I mean, I do prefer my drinks lukewarm, but I would have preferred to drink it before it got this cold. My father-in-law goes out to have a cigarette, and when he returns, the smell of tobacco follows him in. I find it a little unpleasant, but I'm grateful he smokes outside. Just as I'm thinking this, something even more outrageous happens. My father-in-law brings out some documents and begins spreading them on the table. As I look closer, I realize that they're about me. I'm shocked, but he states matter-of-factly,
I had a background check done on you.
Those words leave me with a sour taste in my mouth. It feels as though I have done something wrong. As he pursues the documents, he lets out a sigh.
Raised by a single parent and only a high school graduate.
Well, that wasn't exactly a secret I had already told Sam. Surely he's not going to say he won't allow the marriage because of that. However, looking at me, my father-in-law says,
You just barely pass?
Barely? Is it because I'm from single-parent household or because I'm a high school graduate? I can't help but feel lost in my thoughts. But then Sam turns to me and says,
Good job, Melissa, you passed.
So I guess I passed. I let out a sigh of relief.
Oh, when you're a cop, you have to do a background check on whoever you're marrying.
Sam explains, It's the first I have heard of this.
It would be problematic if there were criminals in the family or if investigative information got leaked.
While Sam's explanation makes sense and I'm not against the idea of the check, I wish he had mentioned it sooner. I didn't like the fact that he just showed me the results of the investigation. And his comment about me barely passing was certainly rude. But at least I passed. I guess I won't have to go through this again. With that thought, I switch gears. As we wrap up the visit, Sam offers to drive me home. I ask him to drop me off at my mom's place. She should be home from work by the evening. I thought I would drop by and chat since I told her about visiting Sam's parents. Sam starts the car and we head towards my mom's place. In the car, I joke, I was surprised by the background check, but I guess that's part of being a cop? Maybe I should do a background check on you, Sam, just for fun. He laughs and says,
Go ahead, there's nothing you'll find about me.
Sam laughed.
Go ahead, you won't find anything about me.
As we were talking, we got close to my parents' house. I sent my mom a message saying we'd be there soon. She kindly came out to the entrance of the apartment to greet us. Sam greeted my mom. Since there was no place to park the car, he left after a quick greeting. I went inside and told my mom about the day's events. She was surprised about the background check, but she said, It must be tough being a cop, but I don't really like their methods. Then my mom says, That guy, he has a fancy car and he looks well off. But do cops make that much money? He doesn't have any debt, right? I'm not exactly sure about Sam's salary, but he seems like an elite among the police, so I suppose it's decent. My mom was worried about debt because my father had accumulated debt, which led to their divorce. When I mentioned this, my mother simply said, I see. A month later, I arranged to meet my mom at the nearest station to head to a restaurant that Sam's family frequents for our families to meet. A 10-minute bus ride from the station, we arrived at a rather fancy restaurant. Already there were Sam and his parents. Upon greeting them, my future father-in-law started off with,
Oh, we have been waiting. This is your first time in a place like this, isn't it? It must have been hard getting here without a car.
He had a tone that could only be taken as snide. There was something I had to tell them today. But as I was pondering over how to put it, my future father-in-law started bragging about something again. I put up with it for about 10 minutes, but then I gathered my courage and opened my mouth. Excuse me? At this, my future father-in-law immediately looked displeased.
What is it? It's rude to interrupt when someone is speaking. Don't you have any manners?
I was about to retort that the one who lacks manners is the one who endlessly talks about things no one is interested in, but I swallowed my words and took a deep breath. I'm sorry, but I would like to reconsider this marriage. When I managed to say that, Sam looked surprised and turned to me. I thought I would marry Sam, but I want to rethink.
Melissa, what do you mean?
A flustered Sam glanced back and forth between me and his father.
Is it because of the background check my dad did the other day?
I shook my head. The background check itself is not a big deal.
Then it's about my dad's attitude. I agree. It's inappropriate. It's rude to talk about the results of a background check like this, and it must have been torture listening to his bragging all the time, right?
When Sam said that, I couldn't help but chuckle. You understand well, but why didn't you stand up for me at that time? At this, Sam seemed at a loss for words. His father was glaring at Sam in silence. That's part of it, but that's not the main issue. Sam, you lied to me. Sam, who had been flustered, froze for a moment.
Lied? You mean about me dating 2 girls at once? But it's different. I've already been dumped by the other girl. I only have eyes for you, Melissa, believe me.
Hearing Sam suddenly expose himself like that, this time I was the one who was frozen. Dating 2 girls at once? From what he's saying, he was dating 2 girls, got dumped by one of them, and decided to marry me? I was momentarily confused, but that must be it. I never expected I was being 2-timed. My father-in-law continued to glare at Sam while my mother-in-law looked at us in shock. I couldn't bear to look at my own mother's face. I'm sure it was a picture of rage. I pulled out a document from my bag and handed it to Sam. Sam, looking utterly baffled, took the document. That's the reason we can't get married. As I said that and tried to leave the restaurant with my mother, my father-in-law started shouting angrily.
Wait a minute, what's going on? Are you making fun of my son? We could sue you for unilaterally calling off the engagement, but you couldn't pay the compensation. We have given our blessing to this marriage because Sam likes you despite you being a high school graduate and raised by a single parent. What's your problem? You're incredibly rude. Is this how you were raised?
The words ignited my anger. I was about to retort when my mother stopped me. Excuse me, but this isn't a unilateral cancellation of the engagement, and I would appreciate it if you stopped ridiculing my daughter. When my mother spoke so clearly, my father-in-law looked taken aback. Next to him, Sam opened the document I had given him. My mother-in-law also peered in, and her face turned pale. My father-in-law, however, continued to yell at me.
What's this document? If you're marrying into a distinguished family like ours, you should be able to tolerate a little bit of 2-timing. If you have a problem, speak up.
I had just found out about the 2-timing here, but that wasn't the reason I had mentioned. Does this man not listen to what people say? Moreover, I don't want to become a daughter-in-law to a person who can proudly call himself a member of a distinguished family. This is a restaurant and the customers around us have been staring for a while. I want to leave as soon as possible because it's embarrassing, even though I'm never coming here again. But it seems like I can't leave unless I explain. I speak up, calm but firmly. I thought it would be inappropriate to say it here with everyone watching, so I was just going to hand over the document, but it seems that won't suffice. Backing me up, my mother says, "We have done some research too and found out something we simply cannot overlook." Taking a deep breath, I started to speak. The lie I mentioned is about debt. He told me he had no debt, but it seems he has been in debt many times. Whenever he's in trouble, he runs to you, father-in-law, for help. And he was also in debt during our relationship, which gives me reason to reconsider the marriage. I thought that would finally silence my father-in-law and let us leave, but now it seemed to be a matter of pride for him as he shouted back,
"Be quiet. If you're going to marry, you have to tolerate at least that much."
"So I'm not getting married," I replied with a sigh, and then an unexpected voice chimed in. It was my mother-in-law who had been silent until now. "Enough is enough. I told you not to pay off Sam's debts because I wanted him to break the habit, but you did it again, didn't you? And it's embarrassing to call ourselves a distinguished family when you're not even married yet. Melissa, your mother, I deeply apologize for my husband and son's rudeness. I'll contact you again at a later date." With that, my mother and I left the restaurant. On the way home, I asked my mother, Mom, why did you say we should investigate?" My mother laughed and said, "Maybe it's a woman's intuition." When she first saw Sam, who had driven me home recently, she had a hunch. I didn't understand it at all, but she didn't want me to experience the same thing. So she requested the investigation, thinking that it would be fine if there was nothing. My mother's intuition was spot on. The background check results arrived last night, and I found myself reading them at the nearest station to where Mom and I were meeting today. I didn't have time to cancel our dinner, so that's how it happened. I can't say I hate Sam yet, but I do despise my father-in-law. I don't want to marry Sam so much that I'm willing to put up with his father. When I got home, I got a call from Sam. He was saying,
I had plans to pay it back. It's not a problem, right?
but even if he has plans to pay it back, I can't marry someone who borrows money so casually. Besides, he lied about not having any debts, and on top of that, he was two-timing me. That's when it hit me. Wait, I don't want to marry this man anymore, not even a bit. Once I realized that, there was nothing to worry about. So let's break up. Goodbye. And with that, I hung up on him. The next day, I got a call from an unknown number. It was my mother-in-law. She apologized to me and my mom, and then dropped a bombshell. She was getting a divorce. She also said she could introduce me to a lawyer if I wanted to claim damages for the broken engagement. Given that he lied and cheated on me, I decided to claim damages after some thought. My mother-in-law, who apparently had evidence of her husband's infidelity, got a hefty sum in alimony and divorced him. I claimed damages for the broken engagement from Sam. Apparently, he was two-timing me right up until he proposed, so I received a decent amount. When I told my friends who I met Sam with about this, the news spread, and one by one, Sam's friends started to distance themselves from him. According to my mother-in-law, the rumors about the two of them have spread at work, and the arrogant father-in-law is finding it hard to show his face. Sam apparently has no place at work either. Thanks to my mom, I was saved from marrying such a man. I am grateful to her, both in the past and now. We are planning a vacation, just the two of us, sometime soon.